Hello to all on Women Dialogues, and I'm your host Shashi with you all to create more voice for women and by women. And today's our guest from New York, Miss Rhonda Binda. She is very famous and politically active in New York and in the United States. She's someone who doesn't require any introduction. She is Queen's Borough Deputy President. She is a visionary leader with a passion for social and environmental justice. She served in both the Obama, Biden, and Clinton Gore administration, as well as she U.S. diplomat in the West Wing. So it's great moment. It's a cheerable moment, and we have to cherish this. We have to congratulate ourselves that Miss Rhonda is with us. So let's cheer up and let's welcome Miss Rhonda on this platform. Welcome, Miss Rhonda, on this platform. We are glad that you are here with us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Goel. It's such an honor to be here. I am joining the ranks of amazing women before me who you've already interviewed. So the pressure is on, but I am excited to be here.
It's our great honor and pleasure to have you on the show, Miss Rhonda. And as you are yourself as an inspiring and motivating figure and a person who is doing a lot of job in government and in leadership role. So let's start by listening about you and your childhood, as we always try to motivate and inspire others by sharing women's life story and their journey. And as you are successful women who are in the leading roles in the government, it would be more than that when we are hearing about your journey. Please share with us.
Thank you. Well, I was actually born in New York, in the Bronx. My family immigrated in the 70s from Guyana. They're of Indian descent. And my father had traveled to the United States before on business trips, fell in love with the country, and eventually decided to move the family to the United States. So we started off living in New York and moved eventually from the Bronx to Queens, which is where I currently live and I have the opportunity to work. So it seems that a lot of people during the 70s and 80s were moving out of Manhattan and the Bronx and moving out to the suburb areas. I learned recently that one of the reasons why is because there was a serial killer that was going to random places all around New York City. So my family was looking for, I think, a safer neighborhood. They were afraid, my dad was afraid for my mom's safety. And because she used to work and travel and take the bus and train and was, this serial killer. Actually, I think he was a little bit indiscriminate. He wasn't only killing women. He was also, I think there were some men that were also, implicated in unfortunately some of the violent tragedies. So I just actually recently learned that it was because of violence against women in particular that we wind up moving out to Queens. At the time, it was still very segregated in New York City. It's a term we use here called redlining, I'm sure you're familiar with. And so we were not able to live in all of the different neighborhoods either. So we eventually moved out quite east to Queens Village. Another funny, interesting thing that I recently learned from my mom also is that the building that my sister just moved into is a building that they visited when we were moving here 40 years ago that we were not really allowed to move into. So my sister actually just moved to another neighborhood, Forest Hills. But growing up, I had my sister, my mom, of course, my parents. My dad was actually a minister. So I always had sort of the service and public service mentality, ingrained in our value system. But my sister was my older sister. She was always very good at school and very outgoing, very outspoken. She's also a lawyer, and with her as a role model, and my mom, who was also, out in the workforce and sometimes working 2-3 jobs to help, support us and the family. And they were, excellent role models for me to work hard and chase after the American dream. And then, as you said, eventually it landed me at, very, exclusive places in politics that I'm so proud to have had, that experience, but now to come back to Queens and be able to really serve the community that I grew up in, it really is a privilege. So I appreciate you reaching out and giving me a chance to chat more about that.
That's wonderful. And thank you for sharing us. And as we hear that your mom, your sister had a big impact on your life. And as they developed in your leadership or in some sort of way, uh, those paved the path for your leadership qualities. So can you provide some more insight about your early journey in your career and challenges you faced as a female? And if there is some positive, I believe there are plenty, so that our audience could gather some inspiration in their lives?
Sure. Luckily, I was able to make a few good friends growing up that we were selected for gifted and talented programs. I have to tell you though, as I said, my mom was a little bit more adventurous. My parents they were a little bit more, I think, willing to have me travel as well and go to these special programs across the city and to be able to take advantage. And eventually I wound up going away for high school, getting a scholarship to go to a boarding school, but not everyone would have that faith either in God or in just how safe a place is, because I was a very young woman, taking the bus, the trains all over New York City by myself in order to get education. So I think that because we had that, it was a combination of the faith in God and also in that drive to achieve. They really wanted to push education as a way to sort of level the playing field. So we come in immigrant experience and trying to move up. They really thought that was more important and it was worth pushing me. So some of my friends did not take the same, even though we were admitted to certain opportunities and programs. But I'm glad that they pushed me to do that. But regardless, always along the way, being a woman, you're always sort of hitting a glass ceiling
Right.
as you're trying to push forward. So it's almost like you have to work even harder.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some things that happened along the way that were sort of subtle, where you're sort of passed over or people are taking credit. And so eventually you learn to speak up more because otherwise it's harder sometimes to get noticed. And then there are other times when there were not so subtle incidents where, having to do with either sexual harassment in the workplace or being in unsafe situations because, there's in trying to pursue your career and your education, you're sometimes alone by yourself. As I said, traveling, that was always something that was risky for me to do. I would often get picked up as a runaway kid because I'd have my bags up, and the police, thank God, they were worried about where are you going, like and so that happened to me on a regular basis when I would have to leave from Port Authority in New York City. And then there's like not so subtle ways that being a woman has been more difficult when it comes to equal pay, which is something that, as you know, is the gap in the United States is actually getting bigger.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is, it's unfortunate. So all along there's the way, but I think that there's a new awareness right now in the United States, at least with the election of Vice President Harris. I think there's like a new sort of inspiration that you're seeing, and a record number of women, especially in politics, getting elected. Boston just elected a Black female mayor. So did Chicago recently. We have a few women that are running for mayor in New York City. And so it's exciting to see. And just even in New York City, we've had our first South Asian elected official that was ever elected to the state or city. And so the appointment that the Borough President, Donovan Richards, gave to me is also very historic because there's been so few, especially South Asian women's voices being heard in New York City until now. Now we're having, so I do feel like there's a responsibility on my behalf to speak out more. As you can imagine, I'm sure you can relate also, as a South Asian woman, it's not really in our culture to be outspoken. So something that I'm continuously trying to push myself and learning to do better. And luckily, I have great leadership from the borough president and mentors that I look up to, like the vice president, like my former boss, Secretary Clinton, when I worked for her in the Obama administration, that and the amazing people that also were around her, that I think that I've had at least good mentorship and examples. In addition to, of course, seeing my sister and my mom growing up, and also the strong women before them in my lineage, like my grandparents and great grandmother.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think that way, the way you shared your experiences, the way you, shared about your leadership qualities, and especially when you are talking about being South Asian, the cultural, the kind of obligation and the kind of learning which keeps you like not to be as a leader or talk openly, but whereas you come up and you show up yourself. So I think these are very great learning. But when we are talking about these earlier time, which you was mentioning about sexual harassment and all, do you think in this time and our current time at your place or in your area, female are still facing the same challenges in their workplace or?
I think so, but I also think that because of the Me Too movement, there's been a lot more acceptance. So especially in our culture, even if you come out and speak about something, often you're told to, ignore it, or it's looked at as something to be ashamed of. Even just yesterday, I was looking at a program with a mother and a son. The son is a friend of mine. He's a former city council person from Boston, and he was reunited with his mother, his birth mother, biological mother. He was adopted. And they were talking about her story. And it's so heart-wrenching to see that so many women have been victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse, and really nowhere to talk to, nowhere to go. Her story was about being pregnant, and she was integrating schools in Boston also the first time this was happening. This is in the 70s, and none of the teachers even said anything, asked her about anything. It was completely, even not just in the family, like this is something that is very common in South Asian families, unfortunately.
Right.
Even in the whole society, just didn't even talk or didn't bring it up. And she talked about how her baby was just taken away from her. She didn't even have a conversation with, and of course at this time, I think she was like 12 or 13 years old. And she didn't even know what was going on, right? So I think that I feel that we were in a much better place in 2021. There are a number of organizations in Queens, at least, that have been instrumental in helping women come out and speak about their experiences and talk more openly, and with healing circles and helping with the trauma and so forth. So I think there's a lot of room now to have these conversations. And it's just really inspiring because, of course, one of the reasons why I try to be braver to speak up and speak out is because we have to somehow, break the cycle of silence.
Yeah.
And I see that. I think the Me Too movement has been just really so important in helping to encourage more conversation about sexual violence and domestic violence. And we're doing everything we can at the Queensborough President's Office to also, encourage people to come to reach out, seek the help and support. And so we've started a gender justice unit. We just launched it during Women's History Month a couple of weeks ago.
Wonderful. Wow.
Yes, it's an amazing. Ariel Davidoff is also a women's and studies scholar like yourself. She was already working in the office in a different unit. We found out that she had this background, and she's now leading this mission. So we're going to continue to have programs. Of course, it's amazing to have an expert like you join us.
Oh.
And we've one of the first things we did is just at least update our website so people know that there's resources out there. So we're giving these organizations that are now deep in the community, and because of the pandemic, a lot of them have even more connections now. A lot of nonprofits, no matter their mission, have turned into more hands-on because of the need.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that a lot more collaboration as well because of that across these groups.
Yeah.
And so with the recent anti-Asian hate crimes, also you're seeing a lot of this is being, a lot of it's being directed towards women as well. So I think that it's much better now. We have still a long way to go because we don't have the teeth in the legislation necessarily behind it. Another trend I've seen is that a decriminalization of sex crimes. So this is also, I think, a very good move in a direction where women can more squarely, own their bodies and their ability to earn income, and really going to the heart of the issues around trafficking, and not sort of putting like a band-aid and making it seem like you're going after violence against women, but you're really, maybe just going after their pocketbooks and not necessarily going after the perpetrators who are causing the most harm.
Yeah, that's as you shared about your work, as you shared the collaboration approach, that people are more active. They are trying to build those, relation and collaborate approach to work and to make it happen. And when we are talking about it, you are such a wonderful leader. So how you inspire people around you, or remain smiling and optimist? Be as a leader, there are a lot of pressure. There are a lot of, we have to face a lot of even negativism in terms of, because when you are a leader, people expect everything from leader side, right? So how you come up with this way?
Well, yeah, I think something that I'm also trying to develop more is just, I guess you can call like the women's intuition, right? So I'm trying also to not be so like logical and rational. I always talk, of course, about, making sure that I have education, all those things. But I think in leadership, it's kind of like that glass ceiling. Unfortunately, that a lot of women hit, in the real world. But I think in leadership, you also hit a wall with what you can, sort of with your, five senses, really achieve in motivating people and inspiring people. And I'm really in this position, I think, especially with all of the, I think, support that women have now, I think we're also getting a lot more support and recognition of our leadership style. So I'm also, instead of always trying to be, like the man's example of how to lead, I'm looking more at the women's leaderships and trying to tap in more to a heartfelt following, sort of whatever that is, like, for lack of a better term, I'll call it intuition, rather than just always looking at, the logical factors, because I think that at the end of the day, people can come to their jobs and come to the community and want to give back more, but they have to be inspired by what really moves them at the heart level. This is also a new skill I'm experimenting with myself.
I think that's what the way you shared about left brain versus right brain. Always there was a earlier it was a big segregation. Okay, this is the logical means masculine, and whereas the right brain is emotional, feminine. So left versus right. But when we are talking about leadership, and like in current scenario, when we are having great example all over the world, and our vice president and all these are, when they are setting up the female leadership, I think the emotional intelligence, when we are bringing in leadership, it becomes more important. And the way you are explaining, people start understanding, yes, at the end they want to, what they want to see, and at the end what we want to feel. So that's important.
And it's something that, I also very inspired by Borough President Donovan Richards, because people will say that he's authentic, right? And that's absolutely true. And I think that sometimes women leaders, because we're emulating men, are not able to also feel that they can be. he's allowing space for people like me and for, you know, and for us to, the women in the office who are so many that are at the director levels, that he's allowing us to really also live in our own authenticity. And I don't know that other opportunities like this had really existed in politics, and because of the changes that we're seeing now and more outspoken women being in their own style. It's I think this is like a really awesome time to be in this area. So so, you know, no offense also to men in leadership, but I think there's a certain style that we've seen that I think people are now moving away from, that can sometimes you know, lack some of that empathy and compassion, and lead to some of the you know, crises that we're even facing with now, in terms of you looking at a global health pandemic. So, you know, why wasn't there more necessarily more assistance and healthcare available for so many people in this city, in this country before? So we have to start looking at our collective interest differently, and more like a community, more like a family.
That's true. True.
That I think women naturally probably do.
Yes, yes, exactly. And but when we all are talking about it, how you thought to developing your this leadership style, and when you were developing, we heard like you got inspired because of your mother, your sister, but when you were having those kind of passion, you were developing, what kind of hurdle you faced, especially like when we are talking about entering into political leadership or such a prime position where we need to govern, we need to, you know, lead.
You know, there's, you know, some unique challenges, of course, in politics, because in order to get into certain positions, you have to have a certain amount of power already. So whether it's fundraising, where, so of course, because of the pay gap, there's challenges with women donating, and then you even see that even among women, they're still donating, not necessarily based on gender, which is not something I think that you should always do, but still, we're just it's harder for women to be able to fundraise. So there are organizations like Emily's List. You may be familiar with the acronym. Early Money is like East. Once they established themselves, then you saw a boost in women in Congress. After they, so there have been movements that have helped women move in politics. So that's one aspect of it. The other is it's only been 100 years since women have had the right to vote in the United States. So last year was the 100, and then that didn't even include women of color and all women. So we've also had a little bit of a delay in getting.
Yes, in many, in comparative to many European or other countries. Yes,
absolutely. We're that, you know, we remain behind in that regard, but I do think we're finally at this inflection point with Mrs. Harris, that we are we're going to see, I think, a change in the number of women who are running and getting elected.
And when we are talking about it, our voting rights, our future work and all. So what future you think this world has come in coming times, specifically in COVID-19 era, and moreover in this, you know, current world scenario, how you see the, you know, which is based on like lot of division, lot of kind of different lame entities and all.
It's an interesting question. You know, I have a background in technology, and I've always been a proponent and a believer that technology can connect more people and empower more people. Assuming that we are giving equal access. And I think that the pandemic showed, so for one thing, as it relates to women, flexibility in the way we work, right? So in the past, it would be seen that, you know, if, for example, you know, women had, again, we talked about dangers in traveling and some of the challenges that are just unique to what women face entering the workplace or getting education, that sort of thing. I think that there's going to be much more flexibility, or going back to the workplace, say after you've had a child, and say after you know, perhaps like been out of the workforce for a little while because you wanted to raise a family, for example. I think that we are going to see that there's going to be more opportunities for, I think, women to be more, or the workplace to be more flexible for women and men who are parents. So I think that is a positive, but also that we're connecting. I think we're finding each other, like how we found each other, and it's going to amplify our voice. So
that's
you're creating
wonderful.
these platforms for us to do that. So
Yeah.
I think that post-pandemic, the value of women also, you're seeing us finally getting recognized. A lot of the essential workers, right, that have been holding us all up have been a lot of people who are overrepresented in teachers and healthcare workers. So unfortunately, we've also been hit pretty hard in financially as well, because of when anytime there's a downturn in the economy, you're going to see those who are already suffering or probably also getting hit hardest too. So we're facing it from all different directions right now. But I do believe that women, I've seen them at least in the past 6 to 8 months being recognized more because of the work that we do. That's often not as valued literally from an economic perspective, but also just socially. So you were seeing how important, teachers are, that are, again, mostly women that, I'm a professor, adjunct professor also. And it's great, but I'm teaching college students. I mean, that's so easy compared. I cannot imagine what teaching, pre-K and K through 12 is like. So I think the paradigm is shifting a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I think that way you shared about the essential worker and their collaboration, and same time have understanding about how they are contributing, whether it's a social or versus economical. The people started understanding when we got in isolation, and then you can run your job, but same time you are not able to balance this yours, which so-called are mental health or social issues. And then there it comes, which we are talking about, where the female are creating they are collaborating, they are working. So as we are human, we all have our journey. We all get a lot of up and down moments. We all get happiness and sad moments. Would you like to provide some incidents or instance when you felt yourself maybe helpless, or where such moments or some instance that you made you feel like cry out of happiness?
Oh, that's such a great question. I did actually, the past couple of days, I've been getting some very good news. So for example, one of my friends in Washington, she was one of my former colleagues. She was just appointed to a very important position at the White House. And I did feel like I could cry when I saw that yesterday. I was happy all day. She's going to be the Asian Outreach Director for and Special Assistant to the President. So I was so happy to see that that she's the representative, and it's also a woman that's in this role. I think that there has not been one since I was there in the Clinton days, which was like a long time ago. So I'm very happy to see that that she's made it there, and I know that it has not always been easy for her. So I would say that was yesterday. It was we were all celebrating. The community was all celebrating her for that, and there are some. Especially in government, there are some challenges in terms of how quickly we can get things done. And I feel a lot of times that the bureaucracy, sometimes I feel it on a different level, I think, than others have. I think that unless you've been sometimes, maybe without that thing, then you don't necessarily understand why it's important to move on it, or to take a little bit of a different approach, to take, a risk. And that's where leadership comes in, because I think that government can often do a better job when there are leaders that are willing to take the risk for the positive and for the negative. And sometimes, unless the agencies and the government offices feel like they have that sort of cover they're not really pushing to do differently, change the status quo, do more. So again, this is where the leadership comes in, and that's why it's great to work for someone, a great leader. Like, I think he is really once in a lifetime leader that we have here in Queens right now, for our President Donald Richards, because is very supportive of being more innovative. But those are the times when I want to cry inside, is when I'm being said, no, we can't do this. It's not just in theory. For me, I know what it's like not to have those things that we're trying to provide more to all the 2.5 million people in Queens, to make it more of a level playing field and to bring that equity. And when government, to me, also is inefficient, that's what causes a lot of the inequity. And so those are the things that make me, now that I'm, working back in government right now, those are the things that inside make me want to cry. Sometimes inside, because
I think those are very important and key issues you shared, but same time you shared those, the truly remarkable story, the way you felt happy and you find yourself to cry out of happiness. So that is really inspiring, and these example clearly shows how you felt for others, how much you are dedicated, how the way you are connected, and your work and all. So at the same time, as a female, as a successful leader and a person, why you think that this platform of Women Dialogue is important?
I think it's so important, just looking at what you've already done. You bring together women of all complexions, of all faiths, of all backgrounds. And I really do believe that if we work together and we strive together, we'll achieve, and we'll break through the ceiling. We're almost there, right? We're getting closer. I do feel that we're at this special time. So we have to uplift and support each other, right? We always talk about that, even when I was talking about the fundraising aspects, so we have to be more mindful, seek out women, that like-minded people that we can help and support across different industries, because often we're one of the only people in those spaces. So you have to go across different industries sometime to find out who else is moving and shaking in what they're doing, and try to learn, and how can we encourage to not be the only one there? How do you bring more into the circle?
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored, and thank you for such encouraging words. And when we are talking about it, your work and your plans, what way you see your future work of plans, what way you are seeing yourself?
Well, like you mentioned, working for President Obama, I did more international work. So I did have a chance to learn, like you said, so many women are doing incredible things all across the world, right? And so that really inspired me to come back and to leave DC and to leave the internet, to come back and really try to empower women locally, and seeing what I've learned globally. That being said, Queens is the most diverse place in the entire world. I think we have over 300 languages spoken here, and we have, hundreds of different nationalities and ethnicities. I think that we're in such an incredible place to really, like I said, change the status quo, change the portrait of leadership here. But I would like to see what we're doing in Queens as an example, whether it's our recovery after the pandemic, and how we go back to work differently. That's in a more flexible, for example, that can help with the quality of life of, for so many people, not just women, but everyone, right? How are we doing things better and differently in Queens? So for long term, I would like to see, successful us, rise back even better, and then to see how we can take the best practices from here and share them with other cities across the U.S. And then continue to connect and share best practices for on leadership across cities. Because really what I've done, because I've been able to travel to hundreds of cities in so many countries, I've seen what they've done well and been working to bring that back here to Queens. Now, can we create a network where we're always sharing? So it's not just one person, but like you're saying, use technology so we can share how best we can all, as a global community, come back after the pandemic and work together more harmoniously with the environment, with each other. So it's more of a collaboration and less of a competition.
Mm-hmm. That's so extensive and I think very much dedicated and fully community oriented plan you have made for your community, for your society, and for your leadership, the way you are leading. And I wish you all the very best and congratulate you in advance, because I can see, and I think our all audience and viewer can see that our inspiring and motivating global leader who is here, who is coming up soon, or more with more power, with more rigorous and with more power in terms of when she's working for community and society. So Ms. Rhonda,
That
when
means
you
a
talk
lot coming from you. Thank you so much.
no, we can feel that. We can see that the way you are having such a vast and very dedicated plan. When we have planned, I believe, yes, you are going to make it accomplish with your hard work and your perseverance. And when we are talking about it, you are always inspiring and motivating a lot of people, a lot of life. So last but not least, if I ask one message for our audience and people who are listening and watching us, what way they can inspire and can get motivated from your life experiences, what would it be?
Well, I really do think that you have to have faith in yourself, first of all. And like you said, have that determination, know that that you will achieve. As long as you know that you're going to do that, you'll find a way. It's not always a straight line from A to B, but you'll get there. So be bold, be courageous, and then, like what you're doing, let's meet each other, let's work together, let's strive together. Because I know that if we are all together, we'll be in the fast lane and we'll be able to change the face of global leadership.
That's really very insightful, very encouragement, and it has a lot of inspiration for all of us. Thank you. Thanks a lot for sharing with us, and thank you for participating, giving your valuable time from your busy schedule. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Ms. Rhonda. We really got a lot of inspiration, a lot of knowledge, and we got really enlightened. I can say that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Goel. And the work that you're doing is so important. And I hope that you can come and visit us sometime in person and we can continue to collaborate together.
Thank you. Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
And thanks to all our viewers who are listening and watching us. Please check the description as well. We have put all the detail about Miss Rhonda, and don't forget to check and like about her work. She is our global and inspiring, motivating leader. So keep eye and keep inspiring each other, keep getting motivation from us, and as well as motivating others. See you in the next time. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.